Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Expert Insight panel on social media ROI. I'm Christine Gritman, the senior editor of the Social Media Pulse community. And by the way, I encourage all of you, wherever you may be joining us, if you're joining us on social media, that's wonderful. We love you. But please do click the link in the post to join our active discussion going on within the Social Media Pulse community. That is really the place to have those conversations. And that link is in the post. You can also just go to socialmediapulse.community, and it's right up there at the top. And you will see three lovely faces of my three lovely guests. So please do join us over there. And if you haven't joined yet, please do. All right, so social media ROI. I'm going to start out. I always hate it when people assume that we know all the marketing acronyms. So even though this is a very common one, ROI stands for return on investment. And it's especially tricky when we talk about social media because it's not always as direct as put this much money in, get this much money back, and the difference between that's your ROI. No, social media is used for all sorts of different things, which may or may not be tied directly to sales. It also may or may not be tied directly to a specific expenditure. You know, there's time, there's expertise, there's effort. So calculating both the R, the return that you want, has to do with what you choose to measure, and calculating the I, the investment, that also has to do with the specific thing that you are doing on social media. So it's a very kind of nebulous topic, and we are going to dig into it from a few different perspectives. You know, I always like to kind of mix up the people who I have on these so that we don't get, people who are doing the exact same thing. So today, not only do we have perspectives on social ROI from the perspective of a digital marketing agency owner, an e-commerce expert, and an advertising expert, we also are spread across the globe. Today's group is in Colorado, New York, the United Kingdom, and Israel. I think we're spanning like 10 different time zones. And please do tell us on the social media Pulse community post where you are joining us from as well. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my special guests, and I'm going to be bringing you guys up on screen. So, look alive, folks. First up is Paul Ince. That's him right there. Paul Ince, aka Biz Paul, is the founder and CEO of Like Mind Media, a digital marketing agency in Loughborough, UK. Did I say it right? Loughborough?
You did.
It's really fun to say, Loughborough. He's also the founder of Marketed Live, an annual conference providing information, inspiration, and practical advice by marketers for marketers. And I've been to Marketed Live before. He really does bring the experts. Everything is immediately actionable, and I really hope you have one in 2023, Paul. But thank you so much for being here today.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me live from the UK.
Oh, yeah. All right. Next up, my fellow American here, we have Deanna Carolus. Deanna is an e-commerce marketing expert helping online storefronts scale on social via a combination of organic content strategy, paid advertising, email marketing, and website optimization. Deanna is also specifically a Shopify expert. And I have to say, personally, she was my go-to expert a few years ago when I was trying to help some clients set up Instagram shops, Facebook shops, that whole murky meta situation. So thank you, Deanna, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and last but certainly not least, joining us all the way from Israel, thank you so much, Azriel Ratz. Azriel is the king of Facebook advertising. You got to start wearing a crown for these things, Azriel.
I have actually shown up to events in crowns.
Yeah, I mean, just rock that personal brand. You're the king, man. He's the king of Facebook ads, helping businesses scale using his FEO system, which stands for Find, Engage, and Optimize. He also does social media management and advertising, email marketing, and Google AdWords for clients as Ratspack Media. Thank you so much for being here, Azrael.
Thank you for having me. Excited to get started.
All right. And on that note, we are going to get started. We are jumping right into question 1. And where did it go? Sorry about that. Here we are. Okay. So first up, we're asking, how do you measure social media ROI? And again, our panelists do have a lot of overlapping skills. They have a lot of varied skills, but we're asking them specifically from the perspective of kind of their representative group today. So first up is Paul, who is our digital agency owner here. So Paul, how do you measure social media ROI for your clients?
Well, for me, it's maybe two different angles here. I'm going to go down the route of. One is, what does the client actually feel is important? Because I guess those of us that are working in social media, we understand a lot more about things like ROAS for ad spend and maybe click-through rates and all this kind of jazz. But when it comes to talking to individual businesses, what they want to know, in my experience, is what you've done for us working? And how do we know that it's working? And really simply, often it comes down to sales. How can we see the post that you've put out there has driven sales, or if it's not easily trackable, things like how many visits to the website has it generated? They want to know what it actually does. We can talk about brand awareness, we can talk about engagement, and yes, people will understand that. But often their business objectives are leads and sales. And so often when it comes to working with clients, it's about understanding what they see as important and then being able to demonstrate how it contributes. And it's not always possible. Now, from an agency point of view, those of us who create the content, we are definitely looking at things like engagement levels and click-through rates and all the kind of technical stuff that we get into. And so I think it's a lot easier to look at things like the retention rate on the video and did that do what we wanted it to do in our objectives. But for both, it all comes down to, does it meet the objectives?
Sorry, I'm muted. So what I was saying is, Paul, absolutely. It totally depends on what the objective is. That's the R. You can't measure your return if you don't know what you're going for. But as you said, sometimes that return is indeed sales. And that's when Deanna comes in. So, Deanna, from an e-commerce perspective, tell us about how you measure the ROI of social media specifically and how it's impacting that.
Yeah, I would say, oh, we have a friend here. Say hello.
Hello, friend.
Hello, friend. We have a snow day here in Colorado, so surprise, you never know what you're going to get. So I would echo what we were just hearing about with goals. I really think it comes back to, what are your goals that you're tracking? Are you wanting to build your community before running a specific campaign? Do you want to sell a certain product that you're trying to promote? Are you trying to generate leads? Do you want to increase your engagements? All of these things can be tracked back to goals. What is your intention with your marketing? And I think the best way to be able to track your return on investment is by having specific key performance indicators that are clearly defined, that match well with how you're going to present your strategy, and then be able to track those appropriately depending on your number one goal, which is either sales, engagement, more leads, or building your community. And those are all very clear, defined, and easy to track.
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed out that it isn't always, even in e-commerce, it isn't always directly sales. There's so many things that you can be doing with social media. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have the Facebook ads expert and advertising in general, actually, Azrael, if you can kind of come at it from that more general perspective, because I know that your expertise goes beyond Facebook. So from an advertising perspective, let's talk social media ROI.
So I will say, in the specific situation of advertising, if a business were to come to me and say, I want to spend money on ads and it's not about the sale, I almost don't believe them. So meaning if you're hiring someone to do ad spend and the long-term goal is not additional sales, I basically say, so let's just say you got 100 million views and the video goes viral and everyone signs up to the email list, but no one buys. Would you be happy with this campaign? And I've never heard anyone say yes to the answer to that question. So from the lens of social advertising, if that is not at least at some point generating sales, you could do branding, you could do video views, you could do lead generation, you could do all that stuff. But if at the end of the day, it is not spending and generating a profitable income to your business, that business will stop running ads because it is losing them money.
Now, what sort, so ultimately business is of course part of it, but how do you measure the social media ROI from it? How can you track that those sales or whatever that is coming from social media?
So there are a lot of tools. Since iOS 14.5 came out, that has become much more difficult. There are tools. There's a company called Northbeam. Google Analytics does like a relatively good job of it. Shopify does some tracking. There is no one perfect solution. I happen to be an investor in a company called Triple Whale, which is for Shopify stores, that does try to be the solution. There's a lot of different options, but at the end of the day, it will never be 100% now that Apple has rolled out they're allowing people to not opt into tracking. But I will say that even if you can know 80%, 75% of what is happening in the back end, that will guide you as to where you should spend money. If you're running your ads on TikTok and Google and Facebook, and the back end shows you're getting triple the revenue from Facebook compared to Google for the same ad spend, you're going to start moving your money into Facebook. So even if you're not 100% clear on every single dollar where it's coming from, these tools, even Google Analytics, even the Shopify backend, will give you enough to give you direction as to where your next dollar should be spent.
Awesome. And this actually gets us a little bit ahead of the game to the next question, and that's my bad. But what limitations do you find with measuring social media ROI? Because it can be a bit nebulous to really track that those sales or whatever is coming your way is specifically coming from social. So what limitations do you find with measuring the impact of social media on ROI, and how do you get around them in your own business and with your clients? Deanna, we are going to start with you first.
Awesome. Okay, so I think it really just depends on what you're tracking. For me, some cases I still use spreadsheets, right? Especially when we're tracking things that are nebulous, like engagement or growth, or tracking like sales of a product from different platforms. Say you have an omni-channel presence and you're really working on selling things from different either platforms or websites even, or URLs. So that's when it can become very tricky, and there's just a lot of data that can be pooled together. But like Azriel said, there are some really great data tracking tools out there. I would say if you're using Instagram, their analytics are pretty freaking great. I mean, they're always updating their platform. So things that you can track now and how you can really like drill down on some of the data, as long as you're back in those analytics, looking in the right areas, you can definitely track more nebulous types of things. I would say too that if you have posting schedulers and different tools, just come with different analytics. And I still use Google Analytics to track results from social, especially when it just comes to general traffic and conversions. You're going to find that it's easy within Google Analytics funnel to really see your social media efforts. As long as you're link tracking correctly or tagging correctly, you can still kind of get the bigger picture to see if your strategy is truly working for you.
Thank you so much for that, Deanna. And it's very important to know how that works specifically in the e-commerce world. Now, coming to advertising, Azrael, you touched on it a little bit at the end of the last question, but I'd love for you to expound upon how you, what the limitations are in measuring social media ROI. As you mentioned, Apple allowing people to turn off tracking has certainly been an impediment. So, how do you measure how well the ads are working towards the goals?
So I'm gonna answer this in a different way than I already did. Spreadsheets sort of can get quite a few jobs done, as Diana said. I have a client now that is importing the data straight from MailChimp with the UTM data into spreadsheets, and then we're trying to build graphs based on the data coming into the spreadsheet. So, like, you literally can go as micro as tracking every single one of those things, even if you go broader into like using social media for influencer campaigns, which is a little broader conversation than this. That will still allow you, if you're using the correct UTMs, to track relatively good data to know what you should be doing, and you would know, which platform is driving the traffic, which campaign is driving the traffic, which targeting is driving the traffic. All of those things can be put into a UTM and could be sorted through a spreadsheet. I don't think most businesses should do that. I don't think it's a worthwhile thing to build on your own. That's why there are so many tools that do this already. But what I would say is what I answered before, which is focus on the big picture, see where the sales are coming in, and do more of that.
There you go. If it's working, do more of it. It's such a simple concept, and yet so many people just miss that. If it works, do it more. All right. So, oh, whoops, sorry. And last on that one, social media ROI. So, Paul, you do all sorts of stuff with your clients. It's not all advertising. I imagine some of it is organic and some of it is advertising, and you do all sorts of things. So, what are the limitations that you find in your work with clients on the ability to measure ROI from social media, and how do you get around them? How do you measure it anyway?
Well, I think now it is a bit of a trust issue. Can you trust the numbers that you see, whether it's in Facebook's platform or someone else's platform or anywhere else? And I think we sometimes struggle to articulate perhaps the whole situation with things like iOS 14 and all that kind of stuff. Getting around limitations, we would look at triangulating data from multiple different sources. So can you compare data from the Shopify store with Google Analytics, with your Facebook ads, or wherever, whatever it is that you're doing, with organic, social? What are the insights saying on the platform or any of the tool that you're using? So we would try and triangulate it and make sense, and then create a narrative that tells a story about what the performance is and what we think the outcomes are, even if we can't tell for sure. I would quite like Azrael's spreadsheet, if he fancies kind of donating that. That sounds like a really good thing for people to have. But the other thing really is about asking questions. So we would encourage businesses to go completely analog and sometimes ask questions of their customers to say, where did you hear about us? Where did you see this? And collect the data firsthand.
Asking questions. Again, another one that is so important, so brilliant, but people skip it. People just skip right past it, and try to work it out on their own. And you really don't have to. All right, next up. Now, this varies widely. This definitely varies depending on what you're doing. It depends on all sorts of account history, all manner of things. However, I think any of us who spend enough time trying to track the ROI of certain social media activities and campaigns and such do kind of get a sense of what a good baseline looks like for us. So I'm going to start with Azrael. And again, depends on the type of ad, I'm sure. But in your mind, what kind of numbers do you like to see, and where you're like, okay, that is good social media ROI when you're advertising?
Profit. The answer is when the ad is profitable for that business. That's the number that you're happy with. And once you hit that number, how much better can you do? So better to me means, can you either scale up spend and continue to make more sales at that same return that is profitable, or can you keep the spend and decrease the cost while increasing the amount of profit? So that's how I would define better. If I give a number, it depends so much. Like I run a lot of clients in the fashion industry, and some of them are getting a 3 times return, and others are getting a 12 times return. So for the ones that are getting a 12, 5 would be bad, and for the ones getting a 3, an 8 would be amazing. So it's very hard to say what is good. The good is you're making enough profit that it's worthwhile to spend more money on that business. That unfortunately and fortunately is the answer to that question.
It's all good. I mean, as with so many things in marketing of all sorts, the answer is it depends. Try things, keep doing it, find out what is good for you and what is not. All right, next up, we're going to bring on Deanna to talk about what you would class as a good benchmark for social media ROI. Again, I know that it is, of course, going to be sales on some level, but let's talk about kind of what that looks like and what's reasonable, honestly.
I love that Azriel can give us real time, like looking at different campaigns, even though you might be running for the same industry, just how vastly different things convert depending on so many different variables. But I would echo that results are a really good benchmark for social media ROI. Knowing where you're starting from in the beginning, having a date to where you want to end, and a goal in mind for what the end result will be, or within the ballpark, and be able to track that appropriately. And some of the mistakes that I do see people making with benchmarks is too much tracking. So there's overlap of data, or it just tends to be so confusing because there's just so much of it, and there wasn't a real process with organizing the data from the get-go or the outside, or not really clearly defined goals. So that's where things can kind of get messy when it comes to tracking your benchmarks. But I would say, results within the ballpark of what you wanted to accomplish, which would be sales or whatever the thing is that you want to track, is a good benchmark. Results.
Results. Can't argue with results. Nothing succeeds like success. All right. So, Paul, in the various activities that you do for your clients, what are some good bench of social media ROI success that they've been happy with?
You're not going to like the answer. So you say it depends. Over here, we say, dunno, mate. I would echo what Azriel said, actually, and what Deanna said, but profit, like when you get a positive return on the work that you're doing, sometimes, I mean, some clients would say that they need like an 800% return, right? But what you do on organic social isn't always tangible. Let's face it. So sometimes what we do is, what we mainly do is we total up the spend on the service cost, the spend on any kind of activity that they're doing, and try and work out the cost and try and get that back. And then you can scale it. So it does depend, and it's not always easy to do. But I think a good benchmark is that whatever activity you do is generating a profit for the business that you're working with.
All right. Everyone here, they're with clients, so it's all about the money, which makes a lot of sense, because if your client is spending money on you, you want to make sure that they are getting that money back many times over. All right, next up, what social channels do you see the highest return on, and why do you think that is? And this is going to be interesting. I really do kind of hope that there is some difference here in terms of what it looks like for e-commerce, for a digital marketing agency, and for ads. But we are going to start with Deanna. So for e-commerce, social media promotion for e-commerce, what platforms do you see the highest return on, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, this is great, because I do get a lot of clients that come to me asking, where is my dollar and my time best spent? And sorry, Paul, but I have to say it depends. And it really just depends on where their target market is, what the demographic is, who they want to sell to, where their focus is, and then being on those platforms that actually make sense for them. And I would say Instagram, you know, even though we're seeing so many weird things since October, just like with the fluctuations and then testing different zones with different things, it's still a good investment because people are still on the platform. They're still engaged there. It's just a little bit of a confusing time right now, but I think it will even out very soon, and we'll see better, you know, flow as we used to on that platform. Also, TikTok, you know, that's a really great platform for e-commerce. I see a lot of even smaller e-commerce shops going over there to promote their products and start with some UGC or influencer marketing campaigns. UGC is a little bit more affordable to kind of start out with before hiring influencers, but still the trends on TikTok for influencer marketing are still strong for 2023. And I think those two are your best bang for your buck right now when it comes to advertising or marketing any of your products on social.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for those predictions and thank you for those observations. And you're right, it can get a little murky, but it always comes back. You know, these platforms are all still figuring themselves out. All right. So next up is Paul. So tell us, what social channels do you tend to see the highest return on for your clients, and why do you think that is?
Right, I can be a bit more definitive on this compared to my last question. But for me, I'm seeing the return on Instagram and TikTok, particularly for shopping and e-commerce, as Diana just said, big time Instagram for that. Yes, it depends on what it is you're selling and where the market is, but that whole process of talking with your customer base organically, putting in product tags or links, and people sharing that in the DMs and talking amongst their friends and going and buying it, that is absolutely real and can generate a really good return on the investment for that kind of activity. But also I want to throw in YouTube as well into that, because what I'm seeing is whether it's YouTube Shorts and the fantastic growth of that, or creating really high quality value video content on YouTube that might even help a service-based business with an explanation of a service or an explanation of steps that someone needs to take. That's also generating a really good return right now for us.
I love that you pointed out that having people talk about the product is a really important return because it is. I mean that definitely does more than most other initiatives. That's the goal of a lot of marketing. All right, Azrael, you are up next. So what social channel? I know that you were mostly Facebook ads, but I know that you also deal with other forms of advertising. And honestly, there's a reason that Facebook ads is the horse that you tend to back. But have you dabbled in other platforms? And you know, why, if it is just Facebook, why?
So I was so excited that I was going to get to pick a fight, and then Paul like took my answer. It's like, you know, so now I have to figure out how to pick a different fight instead. So there's a reason why I've been called the king of Facebook ads, and that the reason behind that is when I was starting out in 2015, I looked around. Now, obviously, the landscape has changed a lot, but the best bang for the buck of most businesses is on the advertising of Facebook and Instagram. The fact that other platforms have not caught up when it comes to targeting is crazy to me. They have had a lot of times. I was actually, when I was at Social Media Marketing World, I was talking with a LinkedIn expert back in 2019, and I said to him, in 3 years from now, you will be the most famous person in the room. And I was confident that LinkedIn ads would be this powerhouse of opportunity for targeting. And it has been 4 years since then, and they have not stepped up. Facebook.
I think AJ Wilcox is going to have to come on and pick a fight with you there.
Was it AJ? It was with AJ.
Of course it was AJ.
I said, you will be the most famous person in the room.
Well, he's still owning that niche. I mean, that's good brand recognition right there.
LinkedIn since Microsoft bought them, LinkedIn has not stepped up in the way of targeting. Every time I try to run ads in there, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. It is so frustratingly annoying. There is a perfectly good platform. Just copy Facebook. Like it's seriously crazy to me that the other platforms are simply not up to par with Facebook as far as what you can do, the scalability of the ads, the sales of the ads. A lot of people today will call TikTok the Facebook ads of 2016, 17. And I disagree with that statement. I was running ads back then, and Facebook, you could get sales. It was relatively easy to get sales on a high, let's call it $100 average cart on Facebook in 2016 and 2017. But back in 2013 and 2014, no one was buying on Facebook. If you wanted a sale on Facebook, you had to collect an email, you had to send them a bunch of emails, you had to get them to buy from there because people were afraid of buying on Facebook. And I believe that that is still relatively true on TikTok. If you see a sale of a product and it's over $30, $50, it becomes much more difficult for you to jump and be excited about making that purchase on TikTok. So you end up having to collect the email address and sell them over there. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I've been seeing. My clients are seeing on TikTok. Google is a really great place when the person has specifically searched for the thing. So I don't know, Paul mentioned YouTube. If someone's actively searching, like, how do I fix this thing in my computer? If you sell computer parts or you sell computer repair, that's a really great place to be able to target actively for a person that is searching for something. But when it comes to interest targeting, which is on TikTok and Snapchat and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, there is not a better place than Facebook and Instagram that allows you to actually generate sales at a large scale and target people properly.
Mic dropped. All right. And I'm actually keeping you on for the next question, which you already answered on LinkedIn. So thank you. But we have a question here from Andy Dean, and she wants to know, how many KPIs should you track? And I'm also going to add in which ones. But yeah, I'd love everyone's insights on that. And also I'd like to remind anyone who's watching, please do put some questions in. You can do it on social media. You can do it right at Social Media Pulse community, socialmediapulse.community on this post. You can do it wherever you'd like, including after the broadcast, and we'll try to get some answers in there for you. All right. So Azrael, how many KPIs should you track when for social media, and which ones in your opinion?
So I actually gave a course on this at Social Media Marketing World back in like 2018, where I picked 4 KPIs. And I basically said, if you could just focus on these 4 things, it will guide you as far as where you should be focusing on fixing something. So the 4 to me are CPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions, CPC, which is cost per click, time on site, and conversion rate. If you could take those 4 numbers and simply compare your results across other campaigns. So if you're running an ad and you have one ad that has a high CPM, meaning you're paying too much just to get the impression. So the question you would have to ask is, why is the CPM high? And I will respond to that by saying there's only 2 options. Either you're targeting the wrong people or you're showing the right people the wrong thing. So if that's true, what you have to do is either target different people with the same content or target the same people with different content. And once you've tested that and gotten your CPM down, you move to the second KPI, which is cost per click. Once you've managed to get the cost to get in front of the person to be a good number, the question then becomes, how do I get them from the ad to the landing page? And if I'm paying too much to make them take that action, it either means that my ad isn't compelling enough to get them to click, or it's too compelling and it's keeping them from clicking. So imagine you have an amazing 12-minute long video and it's super engaging and they're watching, you're actually preventing your user from moving to the landing page. So you have to understand, how do I either make it more compelling, or how do I make it, more compelling to get them to click, or less engaging to get them to stop engaging with it and move on to the landing page. That's 2. Then time on site. So there's been this issue that we've had for years, which a lot of times we get very excited about, super low cost per clicks on ads. But then when you go to the site, you find out the time on site is like very, very short. So how do I make sure that the quality of the user is good? The first thing I look for is, are they spending enough time on the site to actually convert on the page? Do they have enough time to watch the video? Do they have enough time to fill out the form? Do they have enough time to actually add to cart and buy? That's what I'm looking for. If the answer is no, it means I'm sending the wrong people to the wrong offer. So I can change up the offer on that step to make them convert faster or convert better. And then the final thing is conversion rate. So at this point, you've gotten the right people, you've gotten the right message, you've compelled them enough to get onto the site, you've done a good enough job to make them interested in spending the time on the site. The question now is, why are they not converting? So many times, the simple answer is you're asking too much from them. At this stage that the person is, are they ready to buy? And the answer might be no. You might be targeting a person who needs to see 5 more ads before they're ready to buy. If the other possibility is that you're asking on a form. So I use this example all the time, that on HubSpot, HubSpot used to be notorious for having like 100 questions on their landing page. It would be like first name, last name, address, phone number, age, number of people in your company, your social security number, and it would just go on, all these lists. And if you're asking too many things at that stage of the funnel, a lot of people are going to run away and not fill out the form. So you want to make the conversion as easy as possible for that user. And I'm very glad that since that chat that I gave in 2018, there are platforms that make it so easy to convert that people don't, have to fill out 100 things. They come in, they see the offer, they're excited, they want to buy. And we as advertisers, we as social media marketers, we as businesses can do everything we can to fix each of those stages so we get the best cost per impression. We move those people to the site for a good price. We keep them engaged on the landing page long enough to convert, and then we give them an offer they actually want to buy.
My goodness. And, going back a little, I especially love that you pointed out, don't make the content itself so compelling that they sit there and watch it instead of clicking over. Eye on the prize. And speaking of getting them to click over, that is Deanna's whole jam, getting them to click over to that website, to that store, to that e-commerce storefront. So Deanna, tell us, about how many KPIs do you really focus on? What are the important ones for you when tracking the ROI of social media for e-commerce sites specifically?
That was such a good segue. I love the whole compelling comment, and whoever made that 4-minute video needs to cut it down to like 30 seconds, only show the good bits. Some KPIs, I would say 3 to 5. The first one obviously would be your sales. Are you making sales from your efforts? Next would be traffic. Are you driving traffic? And then seeing what that traffic is doing. What activities are they taking on the site? And how can you optimize that traffic so that they are taking the steps to convert? Because if you're giving them too much at the get-go on the offer page or the product page, or something is distracting them that's actually going to drive them away, you're messing with your conversions. And then another KPI, it would obviously be your conversion rate. At what rate are we converting this traffic that we are driving to the website via our sales and marketing campaigns? So those are typically what I'm looking for with my clients, and then optimizing everything from there, because they're all moving together to generate the sales to help grow the business.
And there's so many moving parts, which is why someone needs someone like you who has a sense of the big picture and all the minutia that goes into it. All right, next up, Paul. So how many KPIs do you typically track to determine success on social media for your clients? And then what are those KPIs that you focus on most heavily for them?
Okay, so probably too many is the honest answer. We probably spend too long looking at data. The sort of 4 ones that I would focus on would be sales or gross margin or gross profit. The whole, what are you actually selling? So that's the first one. I would also, like Deanna, measure things like click-through rate or traffic. So what is the impact of social content in going to a destination like a website? Because if it's service-based business, you might not be able to track the actual sales directly anyway. So traffic might be the best one. Could be downloads as a result of that as well, of course. I would also be looking at video KPIs as well. So if we're doing a lot more video these days, and I imagine lots of people are doing more video these days, what is the retention rate on the video in terms of the individual video, and on average, are you maintaining interest, and are they watching all the content that they need to watch? And then the fourth one, which is possibly controversial because some people tell you not to focus on things like followers, so I won't call it followers, but audience size, whether you're looking at reach or impressions or actual followers or connections or whatever it is that you want to look at, understanding the size of the audience and trying to grow that, or at least maintain it if your audience is particularly transient because of what it is that you do, then I think having an understanding of where you are with that is still really important.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone for answering that user question from Andy. And Andy, thank you so much for asking one. And we hope that you got a satisfactory, beyond satisfactory answer from all of our fantastic panelists. All right, we are in the home stretch. We are rounding this up with our final mic drop question, and as well as your opportunity to find out where you can learn more from each of our incredible guests today. All right, so 3 best tips for improving social media ROI. And we are going to go right back to my friend Paul here. And Paul, tell us 3 of your best tips for improving social media ROI. And once you've wrapped that up, tell the good folks at home where they can find you.
Okay, so my first tip would really be to listen to the audience, however you do that. Take information from comments or engagement stuff or feedback, whatever it is. Listen to the audience and try and understand what it is that they want, what they need, and what they're asking for. The second one really is similar, which is really to do research. So use tools to find out what people are asking, what questions they're searching for, whether that's using things like Answer the Public or Also Asked, or just direct information from your customers. And then the third one really is to try more stuff. You know, try TikTok if you haven't done that before. Try engaging with a UGC specialist if you haven't done that. Reach out to an influencer. You never know. A client of mine got something like a 19,500% ROI compared to usual by just reaching out to somebody by chance to say, would you like to say anything? They happen to have, about 160 million subscribers on their YouTube channel, and they went for it. So try things out, and that's a good way. Then you'll soon see what works and what doesn't. If you want to get a hold of me, if you want to find out where I am, then I'm Paul Ince at LikeMind Media. You can go to likemind.media, or you can find me pretty much everywhere at BizPaul.
It's true, you can. And I recommend doing so because Paul is a great person to follow and a great person to know. Thank you so much for being here, Paul Ince. All right, next up we have Deanna. So Deanna, I'm looking forward to hearing your 3 best tips for improving the social media ROI of an e-commerce business specifically, and then tell the good folks at home where they can find you.
Yeah, Paul, I loved your story about the YouTube. That was so great. Like, how awesome, but you just never know, how things come together if you don't try. I would say 3 tips for ROI would just to be tracking your data clearly, not getting, too many data tracking systems mixed together. Pick a couple that you're going to utilize. For example, if you're going to be using Google Analytics with your Shopify dashboard, great. Shopify can condense data in a way that reads you what you need to know instead of having to do the math sometimes. With Google, you can get deeper analytics that you wouldn't necessarily get in your Shopify dashboard. So just keep it clean and clear. Keep the big picture in mind. And again, lean into what's working, as we heard earlier. I would also definitely use very clear KPIs, know what your benchmarks are by reflecting on your goals. So if it's to grow your audience by 1,000 people at X date, you know what you're looking for, and then you can track your data clearly and concisely based on your marketing efforts and what you're testing out, and just give it enough time, which would lead me into my third ROI improvement tip, which would be consistency. I think a lot of people get into this idea of like, okay, we're going to try this thing, and they get into it, and then nothing's happening for a few weeks or the first month. But you really want to dedicate three months, 6 months, even a year sometimes, depending on what you're really trying to do in your business to make sure that it's working. You're giving enough time. With the shorter game kind of stuff, though, I would say 3 months is good before you want to reevaluate. If things just aren't working according to plan, that means you need to go on to plan B. So those are kind of my 3 tips for this discussion of ROI. And if you would like to learn more about me or get in touch, I'm over on Instagram most times. You can find me at e-commerce savvy, and we can chat over there. You can ask me anything. I'm usually in the DMs hanging out with my people. And then Summit Web Marketing is my website, .net, not .com. And everywhere else you can find me at Deanna Carolis.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, especially since I feel like e-commerce and social media are having a weird little moment, with the shops functionality of the different platforms sort of shifting a bit. So e-commerce and actually having it on that website and knowing how to drive social traffic to it is becoming so much more important. And thank you so much for sharing your insights on all of that here today. And then last but certainly not least, we have Azrael Ratz. So from an advertising perspective, what are your 3 top tips for maxing out that ROI? And then tell everyone where they can find you.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I will say is that the number one reason why I see businesses fail in social advertising is that they do not make enough content. At the end of the day, you don't know which piece of content will be the winner. So I have clients come to me, they give me, a batch of 10, 15 creatives to start with. We run the test. None of them work, or one of them work, or 3 of them work. And I go, okay, give me 5 more. And they're like, 5 more? I didn't realize we needed to get more. You need more. You need way more content. If you are planning to have a large scalable campaign on advertising, you must be able to create content on a normal basis, even just 3 pieces of content. I have a client that sends me now, they're like a big client, but they send every week an image, 2 slideshows, 2 carousels, and 2 videos every single week without fail, sometimes an additional 2 carousels. So content, number 1, no content. Number 2 is figure out how to optimize the amount of stuff that people do on your site. We were talking before about maybe your ad is doing too good of a job of keeping people off your site. You want the sale. You want your site to do extra legwork. So 2 ways of doing this. One is I have a client, e-commerce, and if you were to send a person directly to a product page, they would likely buy that product and nothing else, and they'll leave. And one product's nice. That's a great, if they buy 1 product, that's nice. But I want them to buy like 7 products. So instead of sending them to a single product page, I'll pick a collection like a new arrivals, a trending page, specific collection on the site. So now instead of the person coming to buy 1 thing, they'll browse around and buy 3, 4, 5 things. And now you've increased what they're actually purchasing each time they buy. And that will increase your return on ad spend because they're buying more stuff. The third one is a really great answer, which I'm going to get to right now. Is leveraging audiences. So I will tell a business that comes to me and they say, I'm just starting off with Facebook ads. I want to know what I should do. And I say, well, do you have an audience of any size? Email, Instagram, someone that is interested and wants to buy from you. And they'll respond, no, they don't have an audience. So my response to them is, if you don't have a warm audience, leverage someone else's warm audience. Pay businesses, influencers to be in their Instagram stories, in their email newsletters, have them tag you on their Instagram posts. Do something to have them, those people that already have a warm audience that makes sense for your business, and get them to show off your content to their people. Build the warm audience that you need with pixels and email subscribers and followers on Instagram, and then run ads to those people. Once you've built the warm audience, Then from there, you have the opportunity to leverage the magical Facebook algorithm, which is the greatest algorithm, which is what we talked about before. Why, for some reason, Facebook still outperforms every other platform is because the algorithm is just that great. If you hand them a list of people and said, these people love me, Facebook will hand you a much larger bowl of people, and they'll say, here's millions of people just like them, and they will also like to buy from you. And so those are my 3 tips for improving social media ROI. Now, as far as where to find me, I spend way too much time on Facebook. So if you want to talk to me, you should message me on Facebook because I am there every day, all day, and it is really unhealthy. And that's why it's so great, because I just spend all the time, and that's why I'm the king, because I don't sleep. I just spend time on Facebook.
You know, it's good to be attuned to your own target audience there on Facebook. It happens. All right. Well, those were incredible. That is our mic drop moment here for our expert insights panel for Social Media Pulse. I just want to say thank you for the umpteenth time to our incredible panelists. Paul Ince, aka Biz Paul of Like Mind Media, Deanna Carolus of Summit Web Marketing, and Azrael Ratz of Ratz Pack Media. And be sure to join us next month. Every single month, I do one of these expert insights panels in the Social Media Pulse community. Next month in February, it will be about video. So be sure to join us then. Thank you. Bye.